We're all, I think, familiar with this story. You decide today is the day, everything changes.
Hmm.
You make that firm vow, you set a
Well,
huge goal, and you grit your teeth, right? Relying on that clenching force we call willpower.
and it works for what, 48 hours? Maybe a week if you're lucky?
If you're lucky, yeah. But then, almost always, you find yourself just exhausted, frustrated, and sliding right back into that old comfortable habit.
And it feels like a failure. It feels like you fought this grueling internal war against yourself and you lost.
Exactly. And we've been deep in a dialogue about this exact struggle, this, universal failure of just using sheer force to change.
Yeah,
The source material we've been looking at suggests a really profound, but honestly a surprisingly simple truth. The harder we try to grasp change, the more it slips away.
which is such a paradox. So the whole mission of this deep dive is to uh, completely reframe that struggle for you. We want to expose why willpower is so often the wrong tool for this specific job.
And then uncover the other tool, the silent, nonviolent instrument that actually works.
Right. We're trying to shift your focus from, fighting a bad habit to understanding how you can guide your mind to genuinely start loving a new, much more compelling future.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because we celebrate willpower, it sounds heroic. It's the bedrock of success in our culture. So why is this mental muscle often the absolute wrong tool for change?
Well, it comes down to basic brain mechanics and energy. Willpower, just by its nature, is exertion. It's you relying on the newest part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, the PFC.
Right, that's the part that does abstract thought, complex decisions, and crucially impulse control. It's like the little manager in your head trying to override all the automation.
Precisely. And the huge flaw there is that the PFC is extremely energy intensive. It fatigues so
Oh,
quickly.
yeah. Like at the end of a really stressful workday when your decision-making muscle is just shot.
Exactly. That's when you ditch the gym. That's when you grab the unhealthy snack. You're cognitively depleted.
So if willpower needs that PFC to be constantly on guard, constantly fighting this internal enemy I must win against myself, you're just guaranteeing fatigue.
You are. The longer the battle goes on, the more likely the more primitive automated parts of the brain just take over.
Because the bad habit isn't some external enemy you can defeat in one big battle.
No, it's an internal trail. It's a superhighway that's been paved with repetition and emotional reward. So the more you strain or clench that willpower muscle, the more resistance you actually create.
It's like trying to force yourself to relax by clenching every muscle in your body.
Yeah.
It's just counterproductive.
It reminds me of that analogy from our sources about trying to fall asleep.
Oh, yeah.
The harder you consciously try to force sleep, the more awake you get, the more agitated. That straining keeps your PFC fully lit up.
It's the paradox of effortlessness. You force it. You put your whole system under this exhausting strain.
So the only way forward has to be something that, doesn't rely on that limited, fatiguing resource.
So the question changes. It's not how do I quit this? It's something more like how can my mind love a different future enough to just walk towards it?
And to answer that, we have to look at what a habit really is.
Right. What's so fascinating here is how often we get this wrong. We treat habits like they're moral failures or, I don't know, technical glitches you can fix with a strong promise.
We think the problem is the action itself.
Yeah.
But habits don't live on promises. They live on what our sources call the sensory map. This is a huge concept.
A sensory map.
Yeah. When you engage in a bad habit, you're not just doing an action. You're seeking a specific feeling, an emotional state, a chemical state.
So the behavior is just the vehicle. It's the car you drive to get the emotional to-load. If I procrastinate, the feeling might be relief from pressure.
Exactly. Bad habits are almost always temporary solutions for uncomfortable feelings. You smoke to get relief from stress. You overeat to fill a feeling of emptiness or just to get a moment of comfort.
And the sensory map is that immediate link between the action, the smell, the taste, the chemical response, and that feeling of relief hitting your system.
That multisensory reward is the map. And this explains perfectly why willpower fails.
Because willpower targets the behavior. You're standing there yelling at yourself, don't eat the snack. But the underlying emotional demand, that need for comfort or relief, is still screaming to be addressed. It's a fundamental conflict.
And when that emotional demand hits, the brain, which is always looking for efficiency, chooses the most familiar, easiest path to relief, which is the old habit.
So willpower is fighting the symptom, the action, but it's totally neglecting the root cause, which is the feeling.
Which brings up a really profound question. If willpower fights the action, what addresses the feeling?
And the answer, according to our sources, is this quiet force that completely bypasses that tired PFC.
This is where we get to that famous saying, when will and imagination conflict, imagination always wins. It sounds simple, but the neurological implications are just vast.
It sounds almost too easy, though. Like, imagination winning feels passive. I still think, if I don't use willpower just to sit down and visualize, isn't that self-defeating? Is this just mental laziness dressed up as something enlightened?
That's a great challenge, and it shows our cultural bias toward using force. But the difference is this. Imagination doesn't rely on that exhausted prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
It operates through the deeper limbic and visual centers. It processes compelling multisensory experiences. The mind doesn't follow logic. It follows vivid images and feelings that it believes are real.
So imagination goes straight to the deep layer where those sensory maps are programmed. It doesn't fight the old map. It changes the destination by making a new benefit, a new feeling so much more attractive that the old path just loses its pull.
It's a silent internal guidance system. It's not fighting, it's redirecting. I mean, let's look at the anecdotes from the source material because they really show this in action.
Yeah, let's start with the factory worker who wanted to change his diet.
Okay, so this man, he's struggling with cravings for junk food. But instead of trying to battle them with rigid rules, he used quiet time to visualize. He focused really intently on the image and the feeling. I will crave and only eat foods that are genuinely good for my body.
And the result wasn't some grueling, painful diet. He spontaneously started preferring salads and vegetable juices.
Right. And the key detail is he changed without what the source calls moral straining. He didn't win against junk food. He just stopped wanting it. His whole appetite just shifted.
His body and appetite became loyal soldiers following a new general. The image, not the vow.
Exactly. The motivation shifted from avoiding pain to actively pursuing a new, vividly imagined pleasure. The craving for vitality just took over.
And that's the real measure of change, isn't it? When the effort just vanishes, and then there's that story of the donut buyer.
Yeah, the woman who had a daily habit of buying a donut for herself when she got treats for her kids. She didn't announce, I quit donuts. She just used visualization to see herself as someone who simply didn't need or even notice the donut stand anymore.
And then one day, she bought treats for everyone else, drove home, and realized she had completely forgotten to buy one for herself. She was genuinely surprised.
Almost moved to tears, yeah.
Yeah.
The old habit had vanished without a trace, without a big declaration of war. It just faded away.
That force was non-noisy, but absolutely real.
It proves the old behavior can become irrelevant, not just defeated. Whatever you feed with vivid images and deep positive feeling in your mind, that becomes the new default.
And finally, that amazing anecdote of the farmer and the ill-fitting suit. This really brings it to life.
Right, so he buys this beautiful, expensive suit, or maybe it was a vest that was just too small. But instead of seeing it as, a condemnation of his current body, he saw it as a window into his future.
A window.
He didn't go on a restrictive diet with willpower. He just spent time visualizing himself wearing that suit comfortably, moving freely in it, feeling the fabric, admiring his reflection.
He used his mind screen to define the destination.
And over time, the suit fit, as if it were custom made. The point isn't just the physical result, it's the cognitive shift. The mind needs a clear, compelling image to move toward, not a battle to fight.
The destination was so vividly defined and emotionally charged that it just overrode the old automatic sensory map.
Exactly.
Okay, so that brings us to the practical side. How do we actually apply this? We've got 5 gentle but deep steps for you to start rewriting your own internal maps.
Step 1 is the foundation. Identify the true positive benefit, and you have to be ruthless here. Focus not on the negative, not quit smoking, not lose weight, but on the specific positive feelings you want to experience.
It has to be concrete enough to evoke a feeling, right? To bypass that analytical part of the brain, I want to be healthy, is too vague.
Way too vague.
But I want to feel my lungs expand running up a flight of stairs without gasping, or I want the feeling of a light, agile body when I wake up. Those are actionable feelings.
Yes. And step 2 directly fights that willpower trap. Don't stare at the thing you need to quit. If you spend your time saying, don't eat the snack, you have to create a perfect image of the snack in your mind.
Which ironically just strengthens the old map. You're feeding the ghost.
Stop feeding the ghost.
Yeah.
The moment that thought arises, you have to pivot immediately and flood your mind with the desired benefit from step 1. Focus on the feeling of vitality, not the fight against the temptation.
Okay, so step 3. This is the creative part. Create the vivid mind screen of the future self.
And this has to be more than a fuzzy photo. Visualize this person, their confident walk, their relaxed expression, the calm way they breathe. How do they naturally refuse temptation?
And they're not some straining superhero fighting it off. They're just a person who already doesn't need the old habit. That distinction is everything.
It's everything. Your future self doesn't debate the donut. They don't see it as an option for them anymore, just like the donut buyer. And you have to be consistent with this visualization. Consistency replaces intensity.
Right. And step 4 is so important for avoiding that all-or-nothing spiral. Practice in small, guaranteed segments. The mind hates the idea of absolute permanence. It's intimidating.
So if you're trying to change a habit like procrastination, don't declare, I am perfectly productive forever. That's setting yourself up to fail.
Start smaller.
Much smaller. I am a person who doesn't check social media for the first hour of work today. Or I'm a person who always puts away my shoes before bed.
These small steps give the brain guaranteed wins, which it loves. You're bending the path, not violently breaking it.
You're letting the body and mind learn the new rhythm.
And finally, step 5. This is for when the old map rears its head. When cravings arise, don't fight. Remind the map.
Because the craving is just the old pathway screaming for attention. That's all it is.
So when that strong urge hits, instead of getting into a big internal battle, you use an anchor, like a deep breath or maybe touching 3 fingers together, and you quiet the noise.
You're not forcing yourself. You're just reminding yourself of the new identity.
Yeah.
You might even whisper, I am being properly nourished right now. I am free in this moment.
It's a quiet action that just calls the new self back into the present. It's guidance, not aggression.
You're substituting the old reward system with the immediate feeling of the new identity's freedom.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Beyond just habits, this was really a deep dive into the power of the mind and the subtle science of motivation.
It really is. I think we can summarize the whole thing with this metaphor. Willpower is a hammer. And if you use a hammer on yourself, you shatter against it and you get tired. Imagination is light. Light doesn't fight darkness. It just turns on.
Yeah.
And the darkness, the old habit, it just retreats because the environment has fundamentally changed.
So the takeaway isn't that you need to be stronger, it's that you need to see your desired future more clearly. When that new path is vivid and emotionally resonant, the straining of willpower just isn't necessary anymore.
The effort becomes minimal because the motivation is internal. It's not fatiguing. The deepest change always arrives in the quietest way.
So if you're struggling with a habit, you may not be weak. You may simply be using the wrong tool.
You don't need to win a war against yourself. You just need to guide yourself gently in the direction of a vibrant, compelling image of the person you want to become.
Start today by vividly defining the positive feeling you want instead of staring at the negative thing you want to get rid of, and you'll discover that the effort you save by dropping the hammer of willpower is the energy you gain for that effortless, guided journey ahead.